No, thank you. Thank
There
you.
we
And
go.
and thank you for hosting this. I feel like these opportunities are great, right? Because you all are the backbone of democracy and what we really, want to do, which is to turn out voters and to let them know what our positions are. So thank you. And just to introduce myself, because I don't think I've met everyone in this room. I'm State Representative Andrea Salinas, and I am running for the 6th Congressional District. As the daughter of a Mexican immigrant, I know that change is possible in a single generation, but we have to work for it. And I know because it's happened for me. When my dad was 5, he crossed the border with my grandparents into Texas, and they picked cotton and tomatoes in the Rio Grande Valley. He had dreams of working his way out of poverty. And so he enlisted in the Marine Corps, searching for a path to the middle class. And after 2 tours in Vietnam, he was finally offered US citizenship. He and my mom married. He got a good paying union job. And for him, that was the American dream. My parents always taught me and my sister that value of hard work. If we worked hard, anything was possible. It's what I still tell my daughter. And it's why when I was a kid, I would jump at the chance to make a buck to earn my way to summer camp or to buy anything extra, taking care of neighbors' pets, raking leaves, delivering newspapers, washing cars, whatever it took. And then I got into college and I realized my parents didn't have the money to pay for my tuition and their groceries. So I had to work long hours at odd jobs to make my way. And it took me about 7 years, but I'm proud to say I finished that degree free of strapping debt and was the first person in my family to graduate. But it got me thinking, how could it be this hard when I did everything right? Wasn't that hard work supposed to be enough? That's what my parents had always told me. And for every person who has ever asked themselves this question, I feel that frustration. And I know working families like mine feel that every single day, the pain of following all the rules and still falling short and not getting ahead. And I think that there are gaps in policy in the United States that have made it so that working families have to make those hard choices every day. A lack of federal paid family medical leave policy means that new parents have to make hard choices when it comes to providing for their growing family. A $7.25 minimum wage in the US means people can work a full-time job and still not be able to keep a roof over their head. And every day the federal government fails to really act to combat in a comprehensive way our climate crisis, places marginalized communities at greater health risk and businesses at risk of insolvency. And people are scared. But I'm running because I'm an optimist, and I'm running because my 17-year-old daughter, Amelia, and her generation, they deserve better. And I have truly dedicated my adult life to building a better future for all Oregonians, no matter one's race, faith, ethnicity, zip code, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And since joining the Oregon House in 2017, I have been that champion for women and working families, fighting for and actually winning protections for women janitors who are being abused by their employers on the night shift, passing some of the nation's most transparent drug pricing laws so that families don't have to choose between food this week, prescription drugs, the full dose of my drugs, along with laws curbing carbon pollution and making sure we phase out our last dirty coal-fired power plant, and ensuring the strongest reproductive rights law in the country that has been replicated in other states. So I want to take all this work and more to our nation's capital so I can help even that playing field and create that future for my daughter and those next generations where every person has that opportunity to succeed. And for me, I think we have an extraordinary, exciting opportunity here with this brand new 6th district and with all of you in it. Oregon hasn't picked up a congressional district in 40 years. And now this district has the largest population of Latinos. And so we actually have the chance to send someone new to Congress who can give voice to what has historically been a more marginalized community at the federal level here in Oregon. And this district has the youngest population and the most unaffiliated voters of all the districts in Oregon, which could make it more challenging when we, try to get out the vote. And you all know this. But right now, Oregon is the battlefield for the nation this year. We will not be able to reverse the 4 years of harm caused by the last administration if we don't continue the work of Democrats, the work that they've already started, and we have to win this seat. This is a must-win pickup seat for Democrats, and we must maintain control of the House this year, and it starts right here. So I can tell you a little bit more kind of about what's in play and where I am with my race. Right now, my opponent and I are tied, essentially tied. I am up by, polls show that I'm up by about 3 points, but it's within the margin of error. And so it's essentially a tie. The polling also shows that my message and my messaging really around choice and women's reproductive freedom, and then healthcare, especially lowering the cost of prescription drugs, plays really well in this district. And those are two things that I have a lot of experience in. So I'm really excited to get that message out. I just went up on air 2 weeks ago with my first positive message. And then the second one about lowering prescription drugs went up last week. And so I'm hoping to see kind of the next round of polling to make, to see if we're making any headway there, and if voters actually respond to that message. My opponent, he has run twice before for Congress. He's run for other positions too throughout Oregon, a state legislature, county commission. He's always lost. So he's run for Congress twice, in 06 and 08, and he's lost both times. And I'm definitely ready to send him packing a third time, but I do need your help. So again, I'm thankful to be here. I'm happy to have some great conversations and happy to open it up to questions.
You're muted. I know. I hate it when that happens. Joyce.
Just unmuting. Sorry. What are your top 3 priorities? I think we didn't really get that. Aside from healthcare and women's rights, what are your other priorities?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, we are hearing from voters in this district that, the economy and cost of living is hard. And I recognize this. I mean, we see it in our grocery bills every week. Things are pricey, and, it was not this way, 2 years ago. We did not see this. And my daughter, who is now driving, and she doesn't fill up her car with gas, but she's trying to be judicious now, and she recognizes, though, right? And she has a little bit of disposable income, and she's recognizing this as well. So clearly the economy, but workers, I think, really need they need options in kind of how they return to work, what return to work looks like. We know that we have worker shortages everywhere, and right now I think this is playing into kind of our economic struggles. So I would like to make sure that we address kind of larger issues, which I think are bread and butter issues, like making sure our energy costs in our homes are going down. And I think that does really start with putting us on a path to clean energy. And we saw a little bit of this in the Inflation Reduction Act, which I'm really excited about, because I do think consumers will see this directly, making sure that healthcare costs go down. But healthcare, and kind of more in bigger issue, we're not going to see this until we really get our arms around reducing some of the waste within our healthcare system. And that means, trying to eliminate some of those middlemen, trying to reduce like insurance. We saw this during COVID with, hospital systems really struggling and trying to figure out how to keep their lights on and their doors open and overwhelmed. Yet at the same time, insurance companies were sitting on really big profits because they weren't paying out and people weren't actually getting the care that they needed. And so there is something wrong when during a pandemic, we are seeing one entity within our healthcare system. I don't like to call it a system, but whatever healthcare system that we have is making profits while the other is barely trying, is barely keeping their doors open. So we are going to need to address universal access to care. And for me, that means better quality care at a lower cost to everybody. And so, and I've had discussions with Congresswoman Jayapal, and, I have absolutely said I will sign on to her Medicare for All bill, but I really want to figure out how we get there and how we get there as a country, because making that transition is going to be really hard. And this has been kind of my specialty, working on some of these incremental pieces. So if we could do it all in one fell swoop, I would be thrilled. We would need to get a really big tax package. And I think taxes are something I would also love to work on, because right now we have a increasing and bloating deficit. And we really do need to make sure that those at the top, those at the 1% corporations are paying their fair share, because we need services right now. So going back to workers and what they need, people need childcare, and we're not paying our childcare providers the right wages for them to, have a living wage and to be sustainable. And we just don't have enough providers so that when people do need to access childcare, for them to have childcare there, as a service to them. So I think those are really big pieces. I know that, that was talked about in the Build Back Better bill, and it wasn't a piece, the childcare portion was not something that got through. This is all of these pieces I think are really important. And then giving workers more agency in the workplace, right, is something that we have, I feel like, gotten away from more and more. Every year you see a decline in union membership. And I feel like workers, I mean, we're seeing it, even in the, as rural and as Republican as they are, we're seeing it from our forest workers, right? They're striking. They're telling Weyerhaeuser, wait, we just worked our tails off for the last 2 years through these fires, cutting and making sure we got that timber out of the, the backwoods for you. And now you're going to call it a wash. You're going to, reduce our healthcare coverage, but you're going to increase our pay. And that's not a, that's not a bonus. That's not the wages that we should be getting. And so I think across the board, it doesn't matter if you're independent, Democrat, or Republican, people are tired and they realize that that playing field is not fair, and Republicans don't intend to make it fair. So between healthcare, the economy, making sure we really address some of those cost of living issues, and then finally, and within healthcare, of course, abortion access, because it is, again, one of my specialties and something I've worked on a lot over the last few years. Making sure that women do have access to reproductive health care, but the full suite too. So giving women those tools to make sure that if they want a healthy pregnancy, they have it, from prenatal care all the way to postpartum care as well. And I think that is a good message that we here in Oregon brought, and we thought we would be able to get some Republican support for it. No, we didn't. But the Democrats who maybe were or a bit more on the sidelines and on the fence, I think realized that it's about the decision. It's about a woman's private decision with her healthcare provider, and it's about the full suite of services that you provide to take a woman through her reproductive care. And then finally, climate, because it is so existential and something that, if we don't get our planet in order, we won't survive as a species. And so, I've worked on many different issues, public land acquisitions for the Trust for Public Land, and working on the Oahe Canyon lands for the Pew Charitable Trust in the past. And then, all the things that I mentioned just around, lowering our carbon intensity with our clean fuels program that I helped to pass many years ago, removing our last coal-fired power plant from being online here in Oregon as a source of power, and then more recently moving to 100% clean electricity sources by the year 2040, I think are some good targets and some really good things that we've done. And then obviously the Clean Energy Jobs Bill was really the grand prize of it all. We couldn't get it passed. Republicans walked out on us, but we moved it over into the executive order. And I think Oregon has really been on the right track on a lot of this stuff. Would love to get in there and figure out how we continue to do that at the federal level. I think the Inflation Reduction Act did a great job of starting that. We're going to be making investments in clean energy jobs like we never have before, which is going to be amazing. And I think a lot of those jobs will end up landing right here in Oregon. And I keep saying, in addition to our onshore wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, I'm, looking forward to seeing us actually expand geothermal and really see what we can do on offshore wind. So yeah, so those are kind of my big top 3 in a nutshell: economy, healthcare, climate.
All right, we've got several questions getting queued up. Mary.
Hello. Thank you for being here, Andrea. Really appreciate that. And thank you for running. It's very important. I'm going to go back to the healthcare thing just a little bit. I know you're a strong supporter of healthcare, but we have our healthcare for all task force that has been came out with its plan and everything. On a federal level, how can you help us get that done? I know that there are some regulatory hurdles that we might have to get an exemption on or something to that effect. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I haven't looked closely at what the the plan looks like. But for a long time, we've known that ERISA laws essentially prevent us from pulling employer-sponsored plans into anything that's, universal. So that would be something that I know, and I've been saying it as a state legislator. And so we need the federal government to allow us to pull those employer-sponsored plans into a bigger pool. If we want to do something that is really comprehensive. We don't have to, though. Like, we don't necessarily have to. You could have, employer-sponsored plans still doing what they're doing. You're just not going to be able to tax those corporate entities that are already paying for healthcare the way we would need to, I think, in order to move to that, universal access plan. I think there are a lot of other ways to, and again, I haven't seen the plan, Mary, so I don't know exactly what it calls for. But things around Medicare and Medicaid and, continuity of care and double coverage. And so there are a lot of different aspects to it. But because I know this world so well, I feel like I'm well poised to help figure out how we actually get there. And then there is like when Senator Wyden put in under the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, the 1334, and then there's a Medicaid portion too. So for private insurance, there is a waiver for some innovation. In fact, I think we just saw it in the most recent waiver. I think we are able to essentially charge Medicaid for some of the housing that our CCOs can help us access, because as we know, social determinants of health are such a big part of healthcare. So you can't get healthy and you can't get well if you don't have, a warm shelter and a stable place to call home. So housing is a big part of what we consider a social determinant of health. So why wouldn't we consider that part of our Medicaid reimbursement if we're really starting to move in a comprehensive way? So I think those are a lot of the ideas that are percolating right now. But I'll need to go back and do a quick read of what the HCAO folks have in mind.
Cool. Thank you. I'm going to jump over to the chat for a question from Tina Turner-Morfitt. Tina asks, I agree a gap in policies divides us in Congress with voting rights at the top of the list. How will you restore the confidence of voters in the 6th district?
Yeah, so I mean, I keep saying it. I think the way Oregon handles it's, so we've all heard, right, over the last few days about, I think our Secretary of State, Shemia Fagan's battles and struggles with people who are doing all these public records requests, trying to really bog down our county clerks. And so what I continue to say, though, and I've heard this from other people too in other states, is that the great thing about Oregon is that we have been doing vote by mail since the 1990s. It is successful, it's proven, it's tested. It makes Oregon's process makes it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And I've heard like Congresswoman Bonamici say, wouldn't it be great? And Senator Merkley say, yes, shouldn't we be doing this everywhere? And I just actually think that having standards across all states would really help to restore the confidence of people across the nation, not just here in the 6th, but making sure so I guess my way about it would be to export what we have and have other people adopt it, to make people here realize we have a really good thing and let's keep doing it. And then I just also think that what we do as PCPs, I've been a PCP, for a number of years, and as elected leaders and community leaders, talking to each other and continuing to talk to each other is really helpful, because there's nothing that really beats that one-on-one communication. And, and especially making sure that we are reaching out to, I got the Independent Party of Oregon's nomination, but making sure that we do reach out to, independent voters and non-affiliated voters, and know, because I've talked to, and I'm sure you all do too, right? You talk to Republicans who aren't MAGA Republicans. And so, and I'm starting to think like, I think they're getting weary on the other side. So let's keep talking to them, right? On a one-on-one basis as community members.
Good point. All right, Marianne, can you ask a brief question and then we'll have Andrea give us her closing statement.
Okay. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
The other folks have heard this question before, but I was listening the other day to Morning Joe, and he actually had Frank Luntz on, and I was like, I don't know if I want to listen to Frank Luntz. But it turned out that he was doing some focus groups, and he actually had a group that was half the people had voted for Trump and the other half had voted for Biden. And what the issue that came up that they all agreed needs to be worked on, no matter which party they were, who they voted for, is the houselessness situation and housing security. That actually you could realize that you can find some place to live, that's the American dream. And so having to have in the federal government to work on, as some of the things you brought up, affordable housing and minimum, raise the minimum wage so that the wage matches the cost of housing. And then of course, throw in everything else. But I just found it very encouraging to realize that that's an issue you can talk to both sides on, and it's important to both of them.
Was there a question in there?
I love that, Mary Ann. And I've actually been saying the same thing, because we know that the housing crisis that we are seeing here and the homelessness crisis that we are seeing here in Oregon, and don't get me wrong, that is a huge issue, and that is popping up in our, in our polling as well. But I keep saying, I've said this since the beginning of this, we're not the only state facing this, right? I mean, we know what happened in the 80s when, President Reagan released all of these, state institutions and put people out on the street. And I think, since that time, this problem has only exacerbated, right? And it's only become worse. And then, and then we have seen, I think, a slowing of housing new starts. But what you're talking about, Mary Ann, is also true. We need housing at all different levels, right? We need, we need emergency shelter right now. And we've done, again, some pretty good things here in Oregon. We had Project Turnkey, where we invested some things for municipalities to be able to purchase, like hotels and again, just make transitional, shelters very quickly on a dime. And so, but I think it's going to take some coordination from the feds, from our state, county, local electeds, and come at it with a really kind of a comprehensive lens. So making sure that we have not only just the shelter and the four walls of a home, but that stability, I think, is necessary. But going back to kind of what I was talking about around social determinants of health, to make sure that people also have the mental, behavioral health, substance use programs that they need, and then the economic opportunity to continue to sustain them. And I think you mentioned that as well. And I think that is going to take a real coordinated effort and a multifaceted effort to kind of really address the solution, and rather than keep putting band-aids on this.
Thank you.
The word multifaceted comes into play a lot these days, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's not easy, right? None of that is easy.
None of these are. None of these are. They all have several different component pieces. And I was going to ask some other questions about climate, but we're just about out of time. So I want to give you an opportunity to give us a nice closing statement. A lot of us will be voting for you, but tell us again why we should vote for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so I have been doing this work for over 25 years, right? Whether it was at the federal level, working for 3 different members of Congress, whether it was here in Oregon, working as an advocate to 2 different choice organizations, pro-choice organizations, a handful of labor unions or environmental groups, or as a state legislator. I have truly been trying to make Oregonians' lives a little bit easier, and really trying to level that playing field for everyone, and making sure that we have an equity lens when we think about some of these issues. And I think for far too long, that's some of the peril of not including accurate history in our public education, is that if you don't see and understand the problem, there isn't a lens to actually address the problem. And so we've been seeing that for, I think, quite a while. And I think I've been doing a lot of work around this in the last couple of years in the state legislature. And I just think I'm going to be a unique voice that Oregon has not actually had at the federal level for quite ever. So I would be, the first Latina representing a, big Latino population in this district, in addition to working with and representing people that I've been working with, especially in the Salem area. I represented SEIU for a number of years, and And like I said, I've been working with the farm working community, and whether it was on minimum wage or phasing out chlorpyrifos as a harmful chemical in the fields, or making sure that they have overtime pay after 40 hours. It's a, community that I've been working with. And I also know that, they're homeowners, their kids go to school with us, and, they work beside us. And so, yeah, so that is truly why I think it is the accumulation of all the work that I've been doing over the past 25 years, the work I want to continue to do. And I really do understand kind of the various levels of government, how it works. And really the hard part is in those areas where it doesn't work, right? And how to fix it. And so I'm really eager to jump in to continue to deliver for this community and the 6th Congressional District. So thank you. Thank you again for this forum.
Thanks so much for being with us. We sure appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I know it's late at night and you've had a long day, I'm sure. So thanks so very much. Good luck with your campaign. If there's any ways we can help here in Marion County, please let us know.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you all for your good work.
You're very welcome.
Take care.
Thank you. So with that, everybody, we want to thank you for hanging in there. This was the longest of our forums. We had 5 speakers tonight. We know that was a long night, but and that was the one time that Andrea was available on the nights that we had scheduled. So we're